Hey guys, Alfonso Gomez, your realtor. Wanted to take a moment and talk to you guys about a new law in the state of California that's coming into effect in 2020. It's the most controversial law for housing. Yes, it is. It is rent caps, just cause evictions. Assembly Bill 1482, California Assembly Bill 1482. Guys, this has caused a whole uproar in the housing industry. Homeowners are now regulated on how much they can increase the rent. So there's going to be a lot of arguments back and forth if this was a good idea, if this was a bad idea. But unfortunately, for those who think it's a horrible idea, it's the law now. So I'm going to take a moment and share with you all the ins and outs of this law. I have to remind you though, I am not an attorney. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. I am reading information from the California Association of Realtors. If you have legal problems, I strongly suggest you to reach out to a licensed practicing attorney in the state of California. If you have any questions or any concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to refer you. But here's what I know. Here's what the state of California and the California Association of Realtors wants us to share with you. Overview of this new law is this. California has adopted a statewide rent cap and just cause eviction law. Again, guys, no more debating. This is law. Landlords are no longer free to raise rents as they see fit. Unfortunately for landlords, they can't go from 1 month to another and spike up the rent $5, $6, $7, $1,000 a month. Not that they could have before, but they still had to give notice, but they could have done it more freely in the past. Now there's rules, okay? Landlords are no longer able to evict people without cause. Without cause. Obviously, you don't pay the rent, you're going to get evicted. So if you're not paying the rent, unfortunately, you're going to get evicted. But landlords can no longer just come to the tenants and just say, well, you're out without some repercussion. Okay? So what is rent caps? Okay? Let me share with this. This is important stuff. I want to write it on the board here. Where did I leave my marker? Hold on. Now I'm back. Okay, so rent cap. Okay? Right now I'm going to focus in on the rent cap of this new law. The rent cap is, can you guys see that? Yes? Okay, good. So the rent cap in the state of California is 5% for any 12-month period. 5% for any 12-month period. Okay? 12%. Okay? 10% max, no matter what the inflation rate is. Okay? Oh, let me go back. I skipped something. It's 5% for any 12-month period plus inflation. Okay? It's 12% plus inflation. But it cannot be more than 10%. So you have 10% max, okay, regardless of the inflation for any 12-month period. Does that make sense? 5% plus inflation, but it can't be more than 10% max, regardless of inflation. So if rent increase is over max, then it must be reduced on January 1st. Okay, January 1st. Example, 10% increase in May 1st of 2019 must automatically be reduced by January 1st because it's 5% plus inflation. I'm going to share with you what the current inflation is in different areas in California in a second, but it's not 10%. So if you did increase it 10%, in May of last year, on January 1st, 2020, you're going to have to reduce it to the appropriate number, okay? what if the tenant moves out? Okay, what if the tenant moves out? Can the landlord now increase the rent for the new tenant? Yes, the landlord may raise rent to the market value. Okay, that's very important. Tenants move out at any point, 2020 moving forward, the landlord can raise the rent to the market value. This does not apply to owners of mobile homes or mobile home parks. Those good old mobile home parks. Okay, so what is the California Consumer Price Index? Inflation, right? In LA County, which again, I'm in Southern California. So in LA and Orange County, it is the inflation is 3.3%. Okay? So you take that 5% plus 3.3%, you can increase the rent in any 12-month period if we were already in 2020 at 8.3% in a 12-month period. So if you increase to 10% on May 1st, in that example I just gave you, you're going to have to drop it to 8.3% on January 1st, 2020. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Riverside and San Bernardino, just real quick. Again, I'm in Southern California. I'm running out of space here, so I'm going to run it over here. Riverside and San Bernardino. Inflation is 2.6%. Okay? So you take that 2.6%, you add it to 5%. The most you can increase the rent in Riverside and San Bernardino in any 12-month period after 2020, January 1st, 2020, is 7.6%. 7.6%. And just to finish off Southern California, in San Diego County, it's 1.4%. 1.4%. Okay? Now I'm going to jump into the next section of this new law, which is just cause. Just cause. Let me grab my other pen. Here it is. Okay? We're going to talk now about just cause. What is that? Just cause. Okay? So now you cannot freely evict people without having some form of consequence. So just cause. Landlord can only terminate tenancy for one of 15 specific reasons. The reason must be stated on the notice, and it must be one of 15. Okay, very important. They do have 15 specific reasons for a landlord to evict somebody. Tenants in possession for more than 12 months, if no adult is added. Okay, let me back up. So if a tenant is in possession for more than 12 months, they must be given notice. They must be given a reason why the termination of the lease or being evicted. If an adult is added to a lease, then one or more of the tenants must be in possession at least 24 months or all of them for more than 12 months. That's just a technicality. If you have more questions about that, reach out to me. It's a technicality. Okay, trial periods, question mark. Trial periods. Now, why am I bringing this up as a trial period? All you landlords out there, remember, you have to have just cause to evict somebody if they've been in the property for 12 months or more. But if they are in the property for 12 months or less, you don't need to give just cause to terminate the lease. Trial periods. What does that mean? Maybe you want to give an 11-month lease instead of 12-month leases for people that you want to make sure that they're going to be able to pay the rent. Hence, trial period. A landlord can serve tenants with 1-year lease a notice of non-renewal without cause to terminate within those trial periods. But for month to month, you have to make sure that the termination date is within 12-month period. Okay? Food for thought, something that you can think of as a landlord. You know, there's so much information on here. Gotta kind of clear my throat here. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is just cause at fault. So now it's when the tenant breaches a contract, and I'm going to line things up on what that means. Let me get some water. By the way, Kangen water, best water in the world. If you ever have any questions about it, reach out to me. Okay, at-fault reasons. This is when you do terminate the tenancy for at-fault reason by the tenant. Non-payment of rent. Obviously, you don't pay your rent, you're at fault as a tenant, you're going to be evicted. A breach of material term of the lease. Okay? If for some reason you breach the contract, there was supposed to be 5 people living in the home and all of a sudden there's 10 people living in the home, that's a breach of contract. The landlord must first give a notice to correct the violation. Afterwards, the landlord must give a 3-day notice to quit. Nuisance, waste, illegal use of property, assignment, or subletting in violation of lease. This is another reason the landlord does not have to give you notice and you'd be at fault. Criminal activity on the property or common areas, or criminal threats against the owner or agents on or off the property. If the tenants are threatening the homeowner or their manager on site, off site, again, another reason to terminate the lease without cause because it's at fault. Other reasons are refusal to allow access, employee termination, tenant's written notice to vacate, demand that tenant signs a new lease with similar terms and duration. Okay, these are all reasons landlords can now evict tenants that have breached the contract. Okay. No fault reasons. Now, these are reasons you've been in a property for more than a year. Let's say you've been there for 2 to 3 years, and now the owner says, I need the property back. At no fault of the tenant. So the tenant did nothing wrong. They've been paying their rent. They've been following the rules. They've been following the lease, and the landlord needs the property back. This is no fault to the tenant, and at this point, the landlord now has to have a consequence. We're going to talk about that in a second. No fault reasons is owner occupancy, where the owner or the spouse or domestic partner, child, grandchild, parent, or grandparent of the owner decide to occupy the property, assuming there is a lease provision permitting it. Okay? So the owner comes to you and says, guess what? I'm going to move in my mom. I'm going to move in my son. I'm going to move in my daughter. They have to give notice to the tenant and they have to pay them 1 month's rent because the tenant did nothing wrong. There is no fault. Another reason is they're going to withdraw it from the rental market. For some reason, the landlord says, you know what? I'm tired of being a landlord. I'm not going to be a landlord. This property here, I'm not renting anymore. You have to leave. Not at fault. The tenant is not at fault. Landlord now has to give the tenant 1 month's rent. Okay? Substantial remodeling or demolition of property. Now this one has to be very careful with as a landlord. Substantial. If you're going to repaint a room, that doesn't give you an excuse to evict the tenants. Substantial means there's going to be permits pulled, there's going to be a construction crew at the property, there's going to be a lot of repairs. So substantial work, remodeling, or demolition is another reason the landlord can ask the tenant to leave. No fault of the tenant, 1 month's rent. And compliance with a governmental order to vacate the property. Eminent domain, a violation of the home, safety hazard. Again, no fault of the tenant. The landlord now must pay the tenant 1 month's rent. Now, relocation fee when no fault. What is it? 1 month's rent is the fee. So if there is no fault, okay, I'm running out of space here, so I'm going to go over here. Can we see this over here? A little bit? Can we move that a little bit? Okay, good. So remember, I'm talking about just cause. It's called the relocation fee. When there is no fault of the tenant and the landlord is asking them to leave. 1 month's rent. That's what it is. The relocation fee at no fault to the tenant will result in the landlord giving the tenant 1 month's rent. Two ways to pay that. Direct payment within 15 calendar days of serving the termination notice, and it must be indicated in the notice that they're going to pay him a check. Or two, waiver of rent for final month prior to it becoming due. Notice of termination must state the amount of rent waived, and no rent is due for the final month. Okay? What happens if the landlord doesn't pay you that? Now you have to take him to court. As a tenant, you vacate, you follow the rules, but then you can go back and go to small claims court and request that relocation fee that was owed to you. Okay? Like I said, guys, this is a very controversial law. AB 1482, rent cap and just cause. It's brand new, 2020, and there's a lot of people that are very upset about this, but guess what? They can be upset all they want. It's the law. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, if it's legal questions, I strongly suggest that you talk to a licensed attorney in the state of California. Basic questions, I can try to help you as best I can and refer you out to someone that can help you. Again, I hope this video was helpful. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and at the end of the day, I hope I helped you. Alfonso Gomez, your realtor, looking forward to closing my next deal with you.